There's been an ongoing debate amongst the right wing, and to the core of this debate, there is a disagreement between the Zionist conservatives, the establishment, and nationalistic conservatives that are much younger, far more popular. And we've seen this come through in a variety of ways. And I'm going to go through all of those in this video, or at least most of the things that I can recall. I've been making videos for 5 years. I have a large Instagram presence and TikTok presence. I'm not used to posting on YouTube, but I figured I should just start. So of course, there's a huge disagreement between people like Ben Shapiro, Dave Rubin, Jordan Peterson, Glenn Beck, Laura Loomer, Dennis Prager, Dinesh D'Souza, Konstantin Kisin, Mark Levine, Sean Hannity, James Lindsay, and then there's the America First type that are like Nick Fuentes, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Steve Bannon, Dave Smith, Daryl Cooper, Alex Jones, Mark Dice, and even Megyn Kelly recently, as well as a little bit of airtime from the Heritage Foundation. Although they're not America First, they did defend the capability for people to debate openly. Mark Levine and Ben Shapiro will not debate Tucker Carlson or Nick Fuentes, although Ben Shapiro did want to debate Kenny Ko, a former fitness content creator who has been talking about politics and Zionist influence. After Tucker Carlson did a podcast with Nick Fuentes, Ben Shapiro came out against them and lost more than 30,000 followers in 2 weeks. Then the entire apparatus of Jewish organizations like the Republican Jewish Coalition.
You can sit in a basement with weird people and say weird things. It's a free country, right? But if you ever run for office as a Republican and you embrace this weird shit, we're gonna beat your brains out.
You think your stupid little podcast, or your stupid little subscription program, or your little TV show, or maybe you have a little radio show, is going to change the world like hell it is.
American Zionist Committee with Mark Klein and the internal patent lawyers and Jewish organizations that worked inside the Heritage Foundation all came out to bash this.
Unlike most Jewish groups, we the ZOA, we push back against the lies and the hatred. Now Tucker Carlson says that Christian supporters of Israel have a brain virus and they're committing heresy against Christianity. He said, I dislike them more than anyone. He accuses Donald Trump, Ronald Reagan, Ambassador Mike Huckabee, thank you, Secretary of State Rubio, Hegseth. He's accusing them of a brain virus.
There were a variety of people coming out of the woodworks to make sure their voices were really heard, to make sure there was a normal consensus on Twitter. Because Twitter is ultimately a psychological operation, a battle for the mind. There was a massive breaking between the Heritage Foundation and many of these organizations, and they dissolved the Project Esther, or the anti-Semitism project that was meant to cooperate with the United States Department of Justice.
Which, of course, they're just a bunch of crackpot Jew haters. And Kevin Roberts of Heritage called people who criticize Tucker Carlson as venomous people who have another people's agenda. He accused Jews of dual loyalty, another people's agenda, Israel's agenda. It's total rubbish. We went to war against him, op-eds, TV, radio. We said you must retract, apologize, and condemn Tucker. You must end relations of Tucker, or you must resign yourself.
But ultimately, that was part of Project 2025, and we already see that that was formed at a federal level. Zionist author Josh Hammer said that Tucker and Nick need to be neutralized in his writings. Then he defended that, saying, well, it's actually just a figure of speech. But everybody understands this. Everybody understands what people mean when they say they're going to neutralize a person. If you were to say that in reverse to him, he'd probably try to sue you. Lindsey Graham said at the Republican Jewish Coalition that he would beat people's brains out if they tried to run for office and they believe the things that Nick believes or that Tucker believes. Not long before all of this, Benjamin Netanyahu met with 24 social media figures and discussed the Eighth Front War.
But we have to fight with the weapons that apply to the battlefields in which we're engaged. And the most important ones are the social media.
The Israeli state has devoted $180 million to rivaling a loss in public support, and public FARA records from Bridge Partners show that they are paying some content creators $6,100 up to $7,200, or around that range, where a joke has started online that anytime somebody is doing Hasbara or supporting Israel, they are getting paid $7,000.
You're being paid. You got this money. You got $7,000.
You said who paid you $7,000?
Following the assassination of Charlie Kirk, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson met with AIPAC advisors and tech officials from Palantir to promise to root out all isolationists in the party. That was around September 17th. Also, the same week, Mike Huckabee and Marco Rubio traveled to Israel and visited the Wailing Wall. Then, the 50 States One Israel Conference was held, and state senators from every single state traveled to Israel. Amazing. What a remarkable show of solidarity. This is totally not insidious. It doesn't tell you anything else. Then Gavin Wax, a now public figure who works with the federal government, leaked Young Republicans National Federation group chats to try to oust any young Republicans who want to work in politics but hold nationalistic or uncouth opinions. I'm certain it's not the first time that any Republican has said something gross in private. Additionally, we saw during this time a variety of college Republican organizations kicking people out for being too sympathetic with Candace, Tucker, and Nick. It's not just social media figures either. It's not just these podcasters. It's not just the staffers or the Young Republican National Federation and college Republicans that want to work in politics someday. It's people working in politics too. People like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, Thomas Massie. Marjorie Taylor Greene just announced her unexpected resignation, likely feeling threatened. She says that basically there's nothing we can do, that winning, didn't mean that much. There's really no change. Things don't really change for the American public. But reading the underlying current of what she's saying, she struggled and sacrificed time with her family to go and work in the public office. And she feels basically defeated, or at least that's what it looks like. I'm sure that she, who has not caved yet, suddenly got some type of ultimatum and likely thought it was in her best interests to just keep her life. And as you may remember, Matt Gaetz, who is quite critical of Israel, resigned in a similar way. Now, of course, there is the deal with some scandal involving his friend and him talking to a 17-year-old, but he still was the primary candidate to be attorney general, and he was generally cleared of a lot of the wrongdoing implicated in that. So it seems like there might have been a greater pressure campaign on him when it came to he might hold some real lever of power. Instead, they put Pam Bondi in, who says things about crushing hate speech and even opposing private ownership of handguns. And now we see Candace Owens. She is out here saying that there's an official plot to have her assassinated. I will read it to you now. Whether you believe this or not is up to you. Quote, urgent. 2 days ago, I was contacted by a high-ranking employee of the French government. After determining this person's position and proximity to the French couple, I have deemed this information they gave me to be credible enough to share publicly in the event that something happens. Nothing ever happens, but she thinks something will. In short, this person claims that the Macrons have executed upon and paid for my assassination. Yes, you read that correctly. More specifically, the green light was given to a small team in the national, I don't know how to pronounce that, I'm not French, intervention group. I was told there was one Israeli that is on the assassination squad and the plans are formalized. Again, this person provided concrete proof that they are well placed within the French government apparatus. Further to this point, this person claims the Charlie Kirk's assassin trained with the French Legion, 13th Brigade, with multi-state involvement. Journalist Xavier Poussard's life is also at risk. This is a deadly serious thing. The head of state of France apparently wants us both dead and has authorized professional units to carry this out. I ask that every person retweet and share this. I do not know who in the American government can be trusted, since this source claims our leaders are aware, but I have more specific information which is definitely verifiable, should they care to reach out to me. To the brave official in France who did this because they were so moved by the evil in Charlie's public execution to risk their own life, may God bless you truly. Let all be revealed. Whether you believe that ultimately is up to your discretion. But I don't doubt that she does experience serious threats and pressure. She is a large figure. She's one of the top 10 podcasters constantly, and she is critical of Israel and certain power in the Republican Party. And then there's Kash Patel using the Federal Bureau of Investigation to spy on Elijah Schaffer and filing a lawsuit against Rift TV because Elijah Schaffer said some implication to the effect of Kash Patel's girlfriend is a Mossad agent, or it's a honeypot operation, despite the lawsuit generally admitting that he never said that word for word. Elijah Schaffer says he's been declared a national security threat and has been threatened with arrest if he returns to America. I don't know if that part is true. Social media figures love to lie or embellish stories to get more attention, make things seem far more serious. But maybe it is true. Let's assume that it is. He's been a continuous critic of Israel and Zionist conservatives, and he does platform a lot. He does defend a lot, and he has a decent social media presence. So it seems like we are seeing not only a rooting out of every single public official, but also social media officials. Whether you believe the speculation around this case or not, you can save your angry comments for someone else. I think this is important to consider. Charlie Kirk was assassinated after major breaks with donors and after hosting a TPUSA event where Tucker Carlson said that Jeffrey Epstein was working for Mossad and was basically blackmailing the US government, and where Dave Smith and Josh Hammer debated and Josh Hammer was humiliated, making the pro-Israel cause look silly. Then after he was assassinated, there was a large media blitz. There was a big press release by Benjamin Netanyahu where he's angry, huffing, red in the face. He's saying it's just preposterous that we would even be involved. Yoni Koren, the former head of the Mossad, went on a podcast and said,
around the world, I mean, we do. I mean, there is someone falls from a bridge. It is the Mossad. The tsunami, Mossad was blamed to be part of it, right? Yeah. I mean, the tsunami at the time, I mean, in the Indian Ocean and stuff. And yes, I mean, there is kind of a perception about the capacity of the Mossad in light of what we've discussed before. Yes. That the Mossad is capable, and we are. All right? But there are limits and things that we never do. This is not in our work plan. I mean, this is nothing that we will ever do. I mean, taking whatever care of these kind of influencers, making sure that they will be Israeli.
Right. Well, I was going to say, so
we could kill influencers, but just we would not do that. His words, not mine. It's just interesting that they try to do this damage control. Look, we're not involved whatsoever. Look, here's a letter. It comes from his letterhead. It says that he loved our country. I mean, yeah, if you're talking to a nation state actor and someone who you know has insane political influence and gives you a shit ton of money, you're probably going to be buttering them up real good. Whether or not you ultimately believe what you're saying, or you're using veiled language because this is politics and people talk to people who they don't like all the time. Charlie had done a podcast with Ben Shapiro the day before he was killed, where he asked if we're actually getting the full story on Israel.
Maybe we should also ask a question. Is the media totally presenting the truth when it comes to Israel? Just a question, that maybe we shouldn't believe everything the media says.
He also had previously done a podcast with Patrick Bet-David where he asked if there was a stand-down order on October 7th. And he said a lot of really interesting statements about AIPAC at TPUSA events.
And you have concerns about AIPAC?
Yes, I do.
I'm told that by some people that if I criticize AIPAC, I'm anti-Semitic.
I think it's ridiculous, yeah. I feel like it's great to have a concern for your country.
Do you think that that AIPAC represents, again, I'm not saying I believe this, but I think this is what you're saying, that it represents a kind of cutting in line of prioritization away from the American people?
Yes.
Would you guys say that's a fair summary?
100%. He also told Tucker Carlson to go max before he was going to go out to speak to a crowd of TPUSA students, and this was proven by footage released by Megyn Kelly.
And you can hear him on this tape, which I've listened to many times. It's very clear on my phone, less clear here probably as we play it, but he says to Tucker, go max. He interrupts the conversation because he has to say to Tucker something. And what was so important to him to tell Tucker was, go max. Here it is.
Go max.
Now, Chuck Schumer and the Democrats want to, for the first time ever, have the government pass an act to condemn Nick Fuentes. The Bush family says they want to regain control of the Republican Party following Trump's second term. And a former Obama speechwriter, Sarah Hurwitz, tells the Jewish Summit Z3 that there's no way to stop the rise of populism like Nick Fuentes and Zohran Mamdani.
People across the spectrum now are doing kind of the same thing, like Mamdani's idea of like, look, you're taking away money from really good, struggling folks here at home to give it to fund American, Israeli apartheid. Kind of same vibe as America First, right? You're taking good money at home, you're using it to give it to these powerful Jews. So like, to see both parts of the world kind of focusing in on that, I don't see how we get ourselves out of this.
We can see that there is a humongous power struggle as these people are losing all of their legitimacy. The public is getting nothing from them. They can tell they're controlled opposition, and these figures are clearly trying to maintain their status quo power. They want to root out anybody who might infiltrate or climb the ladder, might be a social striver, might be capable of being a good worker, might be very intelligent, politically, sound, but opposed to them in a few ways that are the most important, not only for their fundraising, but also for the power structure that usually runs things. So we can see that this is pretty important too. And I think that all of these things considered should shift people's understanding of what's really going on and should really affect your trust in any of these government officials, especially those in the Republican Party. Now, of course, Democrats are just as bad. Everybody understands that. But I'm appealing to right-wing people, and I'm talking negatively, of course, about the establishment Republicans. And it seems like they are completely either spineless, they know what's going on, but they're not willing to resist it, or they agree with it, which makes them opposed to your interests, or they're completely unaware, which means that they're really fucking stupid. And that would be even more humiliating to think that we have elected officials that are actually genuinely aloof, asleep at the steering wheel. All of this is important to me, and I think that people passively consume this information, and they're not usually diligent in fully understanding the characters that they're receiving information from. They don't fully understand the underlying motives of some of the things they may be hearing, and they may hear argumentation that they think sounds sensible or logical or credible, but they're being lied to or misled. And I think that's important for you to identify. And I have dealt with a lot of people who are fully willing to lie and or they just arrogantly believe they are correct and mislead right-wing people to do things or believe things that are detrimental to their own cause and to their own livelihoods. And I think that we need to be fully aware that a lot of these officials, a lot of these leaders are truly opposed to your interests, and supporting them is not helping you one bit.